I was muted. Hi, everybody. We'll give our folks a few more seconds to join. Okay, we've got a good number of folks here. Let's go ahead and get started. I will remind you to read the read-onlys. There's some really good stuff in there. And Jackie. I don't see Jackie. Hold on. Let me see if Emily is here. So Emily, welcome to the team. We are so excited to have you.
I'm also here.
Oh, there you go. There she is.
Yeah, I'm also here. Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but yeah, Emily, welcome to the team. And you want to introduce yourself, answering those questions that we have in the agenda?
Yeah. Well, hi, everyone. My name's Emily, and I'm a product designer from Toronto, and I just joined the team yesterday. Before GitLab, I was at Capital One, so I was working in banking for a little bit. And then before that, I was at IBM. So that's kind of where I grew as a designer. I wanted to join GitLab really for what I've read about the amazing culture here, and really hasn't let me down so far. So I'm really excited to kind of get to work with all of you. And yeah, I wanted to join the growth team in particular because my background was in acquisitions and like customer acquisitions before too. So excited to kind of work on that. So, and what I like to do outside of work is I just like to do everything outside. So used to, before kind of the world shut down, was traveled a lot, got into camping a lot over the last summer. And then just to relax, I have my 2 cats at home, so I just hang out with them or do art. I'm a big into like painting. I got back into painting. And yeah, well, it's really nice to meet everyone and excited to join the team.
We're so happy to have you.
Yes, welcome. Very excited to have you on our team. All right. We have a short agenda today, but this conversation may take a little while, so that's okay. Our Q1 SUS OKR. So super excited about this. For anyone who missed it, the 2 themes that we'll be focusing on during Q1 are UI polish and system performance. We did vote, the PMs voted, and long story short, it was effectively a tie, but the votes that came in really aligned pretty well along sections. So the dev and ops sections really wanted to focus on UI polish, and so that's what they will do. The secure and enablement sections really wanted to focus on system performance, so that's what they will do. Everybody on this team can contribute to this OKR, and I'm excited to see you do it. The commitment is for every stage group to deliver 3 improvements during the quarter. So you could equate an improvement to an issue or an MR, really, because it needs to be in production for it to be considered an improvement. So let me turn it over to Adam, who's going to talk more about what UI polish and system performance mean in the context of SUS.
Thank you, Christy. So I am, oh, hang on, I just clicked the wrong button here. I'm thrilled to be able to sit here and talk a little bit about this, because after working on all these documents, spreadsheets, things like that, we're at a point now where we can actually work together as a team on these things. So for me, this is very exciting. I put a link in there to a deck that talks about a lot of the big themes that were identified. This shouldn't, or you should probably all know a little bit about this, but there are 6 major themes that appeared after looking through lots of data, not only with SUS, but looking beyond that. And when we talk about UI polish, I'll start with that one first. Admittedly, we are looking at how we define that today. I know that Hannah and Marcel were like literally in an MR talking about that now. So we may see that change a little bit, or we may not. But what showed up in a lot of the data were these sub-themes. And there was a major sub-theme in UI Polish, and that was really around letting users know what's happening. So these are actually, some of them are verbatim, some of them are taken from issues that fall within the UI Polish theme. And when we look at this, it's really about plain and simple, just letting people know if there's a status. And these are things that you can all do through UI. So that's how this sub-theme landed here. There's lots of areas across the whole product. So the best way to approach this one is, I would advise you strongly not to just think about UI Polish in general, because that probably means things like alignment on pixels or colors or things like that. It does, yes, but we're looking at it from the perspective of usability. And with that in mind, there's this sub-theme that has surfaced up as being a pain point with our SUS score. So I just want to pause to see if anybody has any questions on that one or comments.
Hey, Adam, I have a question then. Is that really going to be more about feedback? Like providing better feedback to the user?
I think I would classify that, yeah. So can you share just a brief example that's probably specific in your area, Holly?
Well, one of the usability heuristics I know is providing system feedback. So I guess I'm trying to make the connection between what we're saying is polish and that concept. But a recent example that came to mind for me was I think actually have an issue about this, but we are in the process of moving a feature, the move project feature, to a different menu. And we had a discussion about how we provide feedback to the user that we're moving it. Do we leave the current link where it is and then duplicate it for a period of time and kind of track the usage of it in the original location? Or do we move it and then communicate it somewhere in the UI? So there's been a lot of discussion around that, but I guess I'm trying to better understand what polish is, and I know it's being defined still, but it seems like it's feedback to me.
It definitely can be. Yeah, your example is a little tricky because it's like, if we do that all the time, what would our UI look like? So I would think a little bit more about that one. I'm happy to follow up with you on that specific example. But yeah, I mean, if I were to say at a high level, is it around feedback on some things? I think status definitely falls into that. So yeah, I think we have to be a little careful though, but definitely for all of you in your areas, think about what you can do to let users know what's happening. If you're able to identify things, that's exactly what we need to happen here. Great. The other one is around system performance. So as I mentioned, with our process of theming, we found 4 sub-themes within here. And this one, when you look at this title, you may think, oh, this isn't me. This is probably back-end type work. And that's not necessarily true. Let me go here. Okay. So within system performance, there's these 4. So lack of real-time accurate updates, because there are some updates that are happening, but there may not be that up to date or accurate, and people have to sometimes refresh their browser. We all know about that, I think. There's instances when we're not remembering information, the system's slow, and the general weirdness one. This is where I think UX can probably help the most, because these are things that are like, are they bugs? Is it designed that way? And when we sub-theme this, we didn't want to just say these are bugs, because I don't think they're all bugs. I think some just weirdness around this is happening. Does this meet users' expectations? What's their mental model around some things? So this is a great opportunity for some research to happen. So within your areas, think about these 4 sub-themes, and even helping identify those for your teams. That would be incredibly helpful. The verbatims that we have here, please, for all these slides, don't look at this as just this is it, the entire list. There are a lot more within the spreadsheets. Those are all linked here. And even with those, go beyond that, like, just because that's not all inclusive either. So I view all of you as experts in your area, your stage groups that you spend all your time in, and just look at those experiences very detailed with these lenses. And I'm calling these sub-themes lenses. So if you think that something is slow, call it out, create an issue, put the proper label on it, and we can actually conduct some research as a next step. So any questions on this last large theme here, or comments? No? Okay. The last item I want to talk about is research. So my team, we will be helping as much as we possibly can with researching here around SUS. There's going to be, I'm expecting there to be a lot of research, because as changes are proposed, we definitely want to have a high degree of confidence that what we're proposing is indeed an improvement to what is out there now. So with that being said, Anna on the research team, she's working on an OKR actually to create a process that allows everybody to utilize quick turnaround testing, and we'll be using some usability related metrics very closely tied to the SUS that would allow all of you to test very quickly, and of course utilizing user testing whenever possible, so we're able to get quick results back and move forward with a bit more confidence. So we will make that more public once that is finalized. It's still in a draft mode, but we'll definitely follow up probably in one of these meetings and walk through what that process is. Any other questions? It looks like there are some that showed up in here, I think, or maybe not. Yeah.
Yeah, I had some stuff.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that there's an MRN process around UI polish and how we previously defined it and how we're defining it now. So are we going to expand the definition of UI polish to be more inclusive of what you were describing today? So not to get rid of the original definition and say like this stuff falls into it, but we've got other stuff that falls into it too.
Yeah, so that's actually what I just asked in the MR. So I'm proposing that we expand it out. We think about things that fall under the usability umbrella, UI polish elements that impact usability. So that's a discussion that's happening right now, Christy.
Tori, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was just commenting so Mike Long's comment kind of touches on it, like maybe it's usability polish or something like that instead of like the interface. Like the theme we're talking about seems to be more aligned with the experience and improving the experience that the user is having, and less about the actual interface of like the foundations of it, as spacing, color, things like that, which is what we've previously attributed to UI polish. So expanding it, I could see that, but I also think there's value in having just UI polish and being able to track issues that are related to what we currently define as that. So if we were to expand it, I would want to make sure we can still track just that subset of issues as well.
Good to know. And Mike had a proposal there, usability polish, right?
Yeah, if we do make a change to how we want to do this for the OKR, how we want to talk about it, we just need to make sure to communicate that really clearly and broadly so that everyone is aware of the change. And this is an interesting one because our traditional definition of UI polish, that stuff is important too. I just saw a comment from a customer today who'd taken a screenshot, and they'd given kind of a broad range of feedback, but it was a screenshot of UI text that was butting up against a button, and their feedback, I'm paraphrasing, but effectively it was, when I see stuff like this, it dings the credibility of your product. I assume that if this is happening, then other worse things are happening. So these are important things to tackle too.
Yeah, and in a previous discussion, we also thought about completely getting rid of UI polish because we didn't know exactly what we needed it for. And when we had the discussion, one of the things that came out of it was that these issues would often be very good first issues to tackle for new team members, would often be very good to tackle for community contributors, because they are a bit away from functionality and large things in the code base for more like small things that we could easily fix. So there is value in having this separately tracked.
Yeah, I also might be getting my wires crossed, but I remember, maybe I am remembering incorrectly, but that we were moving away from the UI polish label and using the UX and bug label with the severity.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing, Jarrett, because when you think about it, a lot of this stuff really, they are bugs. They're minor bugs, but they're bugs. And bugs do get triaged differently than
Yeah,
UI
because since
polish
then I've
has
been,
been.
yeah, because since then, since I remember this discussion, I've been using the UX and bug labels instead of UI polish. I don't know if it's related. It's more just defining UI polish versus the label itself, but I'm just getting slightly confused.
Yeah, that was actually one of my initial proposals with this MR. Hi, Anna speaking. Because there's this nuance for UX that overlaps with UI polish and the usability enhancements and feature enhancements. So I think it would be best if we could define not only the usage of the labels, but how can we apply them to the specific scenarios? Because as far as I understand it, that was my last comment in the MR. I think it's, I agree with Adam, as in, yeah, we can polish the UI and therefore solve usability issues. So there's a nuance within UI polish that fits this, the conversation we're having about the shared OKRs. Anyways, comment on the issue, comment in the MR so we can continue the discussion.
This is a really good discussion. I'm glad we're having it today and not tomorrow, because we need to wrap it up probably today. So time is of the essence on this one.
I had a quick question if I could interrupt. Just
Yeah,
in terms of UI polish versus what Jarek just said about bugs, we're not going to differentiate in this OKR, for example, right? So in my group, I've identified some UI polish that I think would be really nice and would also add a lot of feature to the platform, but it's not necessarily a bug fix, so to speak, or it's not something broken, right?
Yeah, I think the TLDR of this conversation is that the UI polish as intended from UXR was not meant to focus on small bugs. It is meant to focus more on what you just described. Adam, correct me if I'm getting anything wrong.
That's exactly correct. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll get this tightened up ASAP. Okay, and then Adam answered my next question. I asked how teams should use the specific examples in the slide. So I just want to reiterate, you've got examples in the slides, you've got examples in the spreadsheet. So one, your teams could go and look for things that are relevant to your group and address those things, but you don't have to do that. To Adam's point, you are all subject matter experts, as are your PMs. If you think that there are things that are more impactful than the things noted in the slides in the spreadsheet, then you have the autonomy to make that call. But if nothing else, look at what's in there. That'll give you context for what users are saying, and maybe kind of jog your imagination for things that you might tackle.
I'll jump in one last time. And if anybody has any questions, or if they're like, I don't know if this fits in with this, please ask myself or Catherine. I don't know the exact number of hours we've been wallowing in this data, but we know it quite well. And if there's any questions, or even if your team wants to have a workshop and have one of us there, we are happy to jump in.
I love the very vivid imagery of wallowing in data.
Yes.
It has been interesting. If you ever have free time that you somehow can't use otherwise, just read that sheet. You will get lost in there. But I wanted to go back to one point under the UI polish topic. With the introduction of the variable about UX bugs, I don't know how my question might fit in, but I wondered if we could discuss a few examples. Because to give you context, when I was working with the SUS data and categorizing by UI polish, it was kind of thinking of things like things that are aesthetic improvements, but also misalignment of text, inconsistency in one page versus another page, status indicators. So if we could add examples of how those would be categorized into the different things, so UI polish versus UI bug and things like that, that would be very helpful.
I think that's an excellent point. And it's interesting because we kind of keep bouncing back and forth here between, no, these things should be separate, and wait a minute, no, this is all like kind of part of the same general problem. Examples, I think, are a great idea. And I love that you're calling out that, again, those aesthetic improvements also make a big difference. So we've got a variety of different things we can tackle as part of UI polish. Adam and Valerie, may I ask you two to be on point for getting this smoothed out as soon as humanly possible?
Yeah, we can do that today.
Yeah.
Y'all are the best, as always. Anything else? All right, y'all are all the best. Not just Valerie and Adam. Thank you for everything that you do. I hope you have a wonderful day.